There's a strange thing happening to this generation. People are safer than ever, more informed than ever, more connected, and yet anxiety is everywhere. People are afraid to speak, to start, to choose, to commit, to fail. But at the same time, they're afraid to succeed, afraid of being misunderstood, afraid of being alone. And the most dangerous part is fear no longer feels like fear. It has been rebranded like caution, like wisdom, like maturity, like being responsible, like not being cringe. And today's episode is about fear and anxiety, where they come from, when they protect you, when they sabotage you, and most critically, how to live courageously without becoming reckless. Welcome to the Train of Thought podcast. And today we're going to talk about how fear may be ruining your life. The journey for today's episode will be as follows. We need to talk about why fear exists. When is fear useful? When does fear become anxiety? How does modern life amplify fear? Cultural and family inheritances of fear, and how fear quietly shapes your choices. But of course, finally, we always have solutions. How to outgrow fear without denying it. There's a pattern everywhere. There are people with options, but they can't choose. There are people with ability, but they can't act. And people with dreams that they cannot start. They read a lot of books, they watch a lot of videos, they attend a lot of webinars. Everybody and their mother has a webinar. And yet their lives barely move. It's not because they don't know what to do. It's because fear has learned to disguise itself as critical thinking. They are not stuck finding solutions, they are scared of getting into action. And fear, when unexamined, it doesn't scream. It will whisper reasonable sounding excuses to you. You will not move and you will justify your stagnation with as many words and many theories as possible. But why does fear exist, first of all? Contrary to what people believe, fear is not a flaw. Fear is ancient intelligence, it's written in our minds. It evolved to keep us alive. We avoided predators, detected danger, read social threats, and managed to stay within the group. On the last episode, we talked about why it's very important, or why it was very important to stay within the groups back then. And fear is your body saying that something here might cost you your life. And for most of human history, that was very accurate. The problem is we have advanced so much from 150,000 years ago. So the problem is no longer fear. The problem is the fear is now misplaced. And your nervous system still reacts like as if rejection is going to equal into exile, that failure is going to equal to death, or embarrassment means danger, and uncertainty looks like it's a threat. But in modern life, rejection will hurt you, but it won't kill you. Failure will teach you, but it will not end you. Embarrassment will pass, and uncertainty is unavoidable. It's the only constant of our lives. The fear that we have today runs on old assumptions, but in the modern world, and we suffer from it. When is fear useful? Fear is not always your enemy. It keeps you from walking into traffic or trusting obvious liars and entering unsafe environments. Fear is very useful also as a signal. If you fear before something meaningful, it often means that there is something at stake. Maybe you're near growth or you're stepping into responsibility. So I cannot urge you to not have fear. The absence of fear is not courage, it is often ignorance. Because honestly, if you know everything about what you're walking into, then there should be a semblance of fear. But it comes in two forms. There is healthy fear and unhealthy fear. Healthy fear pushes you towards being prepared. Unhealthy fear pushes you towards retreating and running away. The mistake people make is they listen to fear as a decision maker instead of a consultant. Fear is meant to advise you, but not to direct you or drive you. And the funny part is, when you strip down fear to the last bit, you'll always hit the same two roots. The first root of fear is the feeling that you are not enough. You're not smart enough, prepared enough, talented enough, or good enough. Second fear is that if you are not enough, you feel like you will not be loved or you won't find safety. So you feel like you'll be rejected, abandoned, excluded, or left behind. Every single anxiety spiral eventually lands on those two things. Whether it's money anxiety, career anxiety, relationships, social anxiety, they all reduce to two questions. What if I'm not enough? And if I'm not enough, what if that means that I will lose love, safety, or belonging? And I can prove it. I'll give you two scenarios. Scenario one, imagine a young lady. She's walking alone in the dark. She sees a tall shadow looming behind her, following her menacingly. The first thing that will pop in her subconscious is to try and identify what that shadow is. Now, whether she identifies it or not, the next conscious thought that she's going to think is, am I strong or fast or wise or in distance enough to survive this thing? And the next thought immediately after that will be, if I am not enough, then I'm going to lose my safety. And the conclusion always is, I am in danger. The other person is a man in a boardroom somewhere getting ready for a presentation that may change his life. He knows that if he succeeds, he will get the promotion or the contract or the deal that will change his life. So subconsciously, he asks himself, am I prepared or good enough to present this thing well? And if I'm not prepared, that means I'm going to lose my financial safety, the safety of my future, and effectively my life. Both these people are afraid of different outcomes, and yet fundamentally, they are both afraid of the exact same thing. And the feelings that they feel in their body are the exact same. So fear always comes down to those two things. Fear also turns into anxiety. It's meant to be temporary. Anxiety is the result of fear that doesn't leave your body. Fear responds to a threat, but anxiety imagines threats. Fear is about how, and anxiety is about what if. What if it fails? What if I regret it? What if they laugh? What if I lose everything? What if I choose wrong? Anxiety is just your imagination getting married with fear, and they just go on a ballistic honeymoon. And there's a cruel loop that happens as a result of that. The more you avoid what scares you, the bigger the fear becomes. Avoidance teaches your brain that this thing is dangerous. I survived it by escaping. So the next time, fear is going to arrive faster because your brain has programmed itself to identify what that thing is and to fear it quickly. Fear will also come back stronger and louder, but the anxiety will go away when the action disappears. And my fear is not going to disappear until you guys like, subscribe, and share this video. So if you're new here, please press the subscribe button. It helps the train of thought a lot. We are growing this community into the biggest podcast. Or share this, or like this, or drop a comment. Let's keep it going. Our modern life amplifies fear a lot. Our generation is not weaker. I actually can argue that our generation is a lot stronger. We have survived a lot of economic crashes. We've survived pandemics. We've survived things that happened once in a lifetime in the generations that came before us. And all of them are happening to us at once. But we are overstimulated. Our ancestors feared hunger, war, disease, physical danger. We fear public opinion, online judgment, missed opportunities, wrong choices, and falling behind. None of those things can actually end your life. None of those things can put you in a hospital bed unless if you go and make an actual physical mistake. But social media has created constant comparison, infinite options, and permanent visibility. We are no longer comparing ourselves to our villages. We are comparing ourselves to the highlight reels of everybody in the world. The news cycles feed you fear. The algorithms reward outrage. Our timelines always magnify the worst case scenarios. But our nervous systems were actually not built for this much input. We still have 12th century brain that have access to 21st century technology. We haven't caught up. So we stay on high alert. And the fastest way that we usually combat this becomes overthinking and outrage. And it feels good. A lot of overthinkers enjoy the process of overthinking, and a lot of people that practice outrage online enjoy it so much. That's why people love arguing online all the time. Because fear hates uncertainty and insignificance, and outrage, well, it solves both of them. When people rant online and argue endlessly and obsess over what's wrong with the world, they are not just angry, they are gaining certainty. They will give wrong opinions very confidently and feel they are correct. It takes away a fear of being stupid, a fear of being ignorant. And then they gain significance. When they insult you or give you a clap back and everybody laughs at you, they feel significant, they feel powerful, they feel stronger. Anger will always make you feel powerful. Fear will always make you feel small. So people trade in their fear for anger. And it works, but very briefly. And like a sugar high, it crashes and crashes hard. But you want that high to happen again. So you repeat the dark cycle of fear, anxiety, overthinking, and anger. And some fears are inherited in our cultures and in our family. They teach us fear before we can even feel it. In many homes, fear is framed as wisdom, and that's why we have so many stories across so many civilizations that teach fear through nursery rhymes and fables and fairy tales. They tell you, don't touch that, people will talk. You're better safe than sorry, just endure. Our parents taught us fear, not because they were cruel or didn't wish the best for us, but it's because fear kept them alive and their parents alive and so forth. And if you trace it all the way back, we'll go back to the cavemen. In many African homes, the fear of authority, poverty, shame, or standing out was very real and existent, and it kept very many people both safe but at the same time fairly healthy and happy. Globally, there is the fear of instability, of failure, of non-conformity. Children absorb this very silently, and as adult, fear starts feeling like instinct. But often it's not your instinct, it's inheritance. Ask yourself, how many things in your life do you fear, but you actually don't know why you fear them? Your parents just taught you to be afraid of them. Think about that. But what if fear is actually wisdom? Sometimes I think it actually could be. Not every risk will be an intelligent risk. Not every leap you take will be bravery. As a matter of fact, there's a very thin line between bravery and stupidity. So, not every discomfort will also be growth, and realistically, some fears are warnings. The mistake doesn't lie in not feeling fear, the mistake lies in obeying it blindly. Wisdom must always question fear, but fear always demands obedience without question. Courage to you should not be ignoring fear, it should be acting even when fear is present. Fear quietly shapes our lives. It rarely ruins our lives dramatically, it ruins them very politely, very slowly. It makes you choose safe careers that you honestly hate. You stay in relationships that drain you. You delay starting what matters, or you settle for less than what you want. It convinces you that you need more information, you need more money, you need more validation, you need them to love you more, you need to be very certain and sure that your husband hasn't cheated. But certainty is not the price of action, courage is. Fear does not stop you from living, it just teaches you to live smaller and weaker. So, how do we overcome fear without denying it? Some of the steps in here, I have them in a free book for everybody called A Passenger's Guide to Overthinking. I'll link it in the bio. But let's move on. Step one, name the fear clearly. Fear will always grow in vagueness. If you can't fully explain what you're afraid of, fear loves that. A lot of people are not afraid of things because they understand them, it's because they don't understand them. So ask yourself, what exactly am I afraid of? What is the worst realistic outcome and can I survive it? A lot of fears collapse under specificity. Once you scrutinize your fear and you're very specific about it, 9 times out of 10, it's going to fade away. Then, number two, separate your fear from your intuition. Fear will always scream urgency. It will always make you feel like you must do this now, that this is the last moment. Intuition, on the other side, is usually quiet. Fear tells you not to move, but intuition will tell you be careful, but move anyways. If the fear you feel only wants you to avoid something, then you must question it. But if the intuition you feel tells you, be careful, then that is a very natural intuition that you actually should follow. People that do parkour are a perfect example of this. They are afraid of jumping across buildings. However, their intuition guides them to be careful. They don't allow fear to tell them not to jump. And step 3, build evidence through action. Confidence is not a mindset. Confidence is muscle memory. You only build courage by surviving experiences, and they don't have to be big. Very small actions, very repeated exposure. Action teaches your nervous system safety. Let us say you have a fear of public speaking. Imagine if you went to a karaoke bar 10 times in a month. Would you still fear the public as much as you did before? The answer is no. You would have built enough evidence for your brain and for your nervous system to know that you're actually capable of standing in front of people. Step 4, shrink your time horizon. Fear loves the future. It always sends you far into the future. If this doesn't happen, this will happen and this will happen. And it's so far into the future. Reduce the fear. Do not decide your whole life as a result of anxiety. Just decide today and move. Momentum always kills anxiety. And step 5, normalize discomfort. Don't be afraid of being uncomfortable. Don't be afraid of failing. Don't be afraid of losing. Growth will always feel unsafe at first. Making the right decision will always feel like it's the wrong decision. Letting that man go or quitting that job is always going to feel like it's the wrong decision, and you're going to question it most of the time. But if you give it time and you shorten the time frame within which you want the results to show up, you will actually see the difference. If you wait to feel ready, you will wait forever. Comfort is not your goal. Capacity is. Fear is not proof that you are weak. It is proof that you are human. Fear will always visit you before growth, change, responsibility, or expansion. The question is not whether fear will be present or not. The question is whether fear gets to decide. You do not overcome fear by waiting for it to leave. You outgrow fear by building a life so aligned that fear becomes background noise instead of a command. And one day, quietly, you will realize that the fear never disappeared. You just stopped obeying it. And that, my friend, is freedom. My name is Hertz Fauzan, and I remain your loyal and humble conductor on the train of thought. This episode is directed by Latifa, edited by Akura and Zaidan, and produced by Wale Ogidan. With a special thanks to the Train of Thought team. From all of us to you, I'll see you on the next train.